Welcome to the Ben and Lauren Show. I'm Ben, and here's Lauren, and it is Saturday night. We actually are doing it on time today.
Everybody else is sleeping, apparently.
You mean in our house?
No, there's no show from Dustin and Cassie. There's no show from Zach. So.
Oh yeah, a lot of people like doing Saturday night podcasts, but not tonight. I think maybe it's the weather. I don't know. Maybe everyone's sick, tired.
Tired.
We're not tired. I'm feeling good. I got my tea.
You might be sleepy by the time you're done drinking that tea.
Oh yeah, we got kind of a sleepy time tea. See, Ben. What is it? Lavender and...
It's lavender and honey, but it has
honey?
passion fruit flower in it, and I noticed that we get very sleepy after you drink that.
So this might be a short Ben and Lauren show.
You always say that.
It's going to be an hour. So what do we want to talk about today? We kind of discussed ahead of time. We don't have our notes this time.
Well, you want to discuss the package we got in the mail?
Oh yeah, let's start off with a prop. We got this in the mail the other day. Thank you, Hebrew housewife. And it is a giant bottle of honey. Now, if you remember, we got a giant bottle of honey like this. Was it last year?
Last year. It was really good.
Oh, and it smells so good. This is from sunflowers. So it's sunflower honey. We figured we would do a taste test while we're here. Why not?
This came as a complete surprise. We found a package on our doorstep, and it was Ben's like, were we expecting something? And said a couple packages, but not one that looks like that. And then we opened it up. Well, first you looked at the return address, and I said, I know who that's from.
And you said honey. I said, what?
And I said, I bet that is honey. Because I couldn't think of what else she would send us. So we were very surprised and very grateful. It's a very, very special gift.
It really
honey
is
precious stuff.
It is, and it's well appreciated in this house.
It is highly appreciated. We really like our honey.
All right, to properly sample honey, you smell it.
It smells different than last year. Last year it smelled kind of a little like corn.
You test how long it takes to drip.
It's a lot more flowery smelling this
Look
year.
how beautiful that is. This is gorgeous. And then you have to flip it upside down.
Except when it's spicy.
Well, that's quite good.
That's very good.
It's sweet, and it has like a flowery taste to it.
Bit of a smoky taste, almost like molasses.
A little bit. If I imagine eating sunflower seeds, I can actually make the connection.
I can't taste sunflower, but to me it tastes like it's like coffee or smoky or...
No, I think it tastes a little bit like sunflowers smell. Imagine you're smelling a sunflower.
I guess I could see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very good. She told us that this is the last year they'll have honey for a while because her husband was informing her that if you plant sunflowers too many years in a row in the same field, they get this fungus on them, and it causes the sunflowers to explode and drop all their seeds on the ground before you can harvest them. So you basically don't want to plant sunflowers too many years in one place.
So we're learning new things about sunflowers.
That is a pretty fascinating thing to know.
So we did grow a sunflower one year.
Oh, we tried? Yeah, we got one to grow. The squirrels kept eating our seedlings.
Yeah, the sunflower would get about that tall, and the squirrels would nibble them.
Apparently, they love sunflower sprouts.
But we managed to grow one giant sunflower, and we tried getting the seeds from it.
Come to think of it, we had trouble collecting the seeds, didn't we?
I think we tried picking it at the wrong time,
Yeah,
and I also think we didn't dry it. There's a method you use to dry it.
The girls would really like to grow sunflowers again, but I think before we grow them again, I'd want to look up what we should do to
Do them right.
do it right. One thing we are learning, the importance of researching something before you just throw something in the ground and hope it grows.
Well, like, for example, what was it? Artichokes.
You were thinking about growing one.
I got it in my head that I'd like to grow an artichoke. And Lauren says, no, you don't want to do that, Ben. I said, but you can grow them in Michigan. She says, research it a little bit and make it, So I did. Turns out, yes, you can grow them in Michigan. It's not easy.
You pretty much better be a professional gardener devoted to growing that artichoke.
Yeah.
You really got to want it. And then you're going to end up with how many? Maybe 5 or 6 artichokes after 2 years of babying the plant.
They don't really produce a lot of fruit.
Right.
Especially in Michigan. So we sort of decided no on the artichokes.
But that brings us back to the sunflower honey in that we've considered growing the sunflowers before too. And now we know if we ever do, better not grow more than twice in a row. They might explode. And that sounds frightening, a field of exploding sunflowers.
That sounds like something out of Yoshi's Island, exploding sunflowers. So anyway, we enjoyed the honey. Thank you so much, Hebrew housewife. It's a wonderful, wonderful gift.
She also sent us a little tub of spun honey, and she said she prefers that, and she eats it out of the tub. And I know what she means because I'm tempted to do that too. Right now, I'm really keeping sugar down out of my diet, so I can be like closer down to normal weight before we're pregnant again.
No, this is not an announcement about anything.
It's just practical application after knowing what happens with all our other babies. Even though people ask us, don't you know what causes that? Yes, we do know what causes that. And yes, we probably will be expecting again sometime in the next 2 years. And sometime I have to be not quite so fat when we get there. Anyway, that's a long way of saying I've been really keeping the sugar out of my diet, and that includes honey. So it's very tempting to me to steal taste. So I put like a little teeny tiny dab in some of my tea drinks. I think I like the flavor.
Abigail is still trying to figure out, I've not explained to her, but she says that it's about time for Mama to have a baby in her tummy again.
What? Rebecca's only 2 months old.
She just made up her mind that now that Rebecca's a little bit of a bigger baby, that now is the time. I said, no.
80 days.
Nope.
There has to be at least 80 days.
God made sure. Is it 80 days or? Yeah, 80 days.
There has to be at least an 80-day break. According to God.
According to God.
So we will never have a classic case of Irish twins.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on from that slightly awkward, I guess I brought it up.
You did. I wasn't going to tell the story about Abigail.
So, another thing came today in the mail. Two packages.
I got new shoes.
2 packages showed up today. One was a pair of shoes for Lauren. And there's a short story with that one, too. Basically, Lauren needs new shoes.
My old shoes were...
They were actually falling apart. And finally, I think it was Sunday, we had some time, and Lauren went to the DSW and picked out some shoes. And I said, well, why don't you just text me a picture of them and let me know.
And as soon as he did... Well, first he wants me to check and make sure there's any coupon codes.
Of course.
And I'm like, well, we had a coupon, but it expired November 24th. And originally, I had expected to have plenty of time to go get shoes with that coupon.
So she texted me some pictures, and she said, I really like this color shoe. It's but they don't have it in the clearance area. And they have these shoes. I don't like the color, but they'll work, and they're this much. So what do I do? But I go online, and I find the exact color shoes that she's looking for.
At the price of the ones I don't like the color of.
At the exact size that she needs. They're perfect. They're a little bit less price, or is it about the same?
No, it was the same. What happened was DSW had put a whole bunch of shoes on sale, and they had 2 models of the same shoe. One was white, and one was gray. Now, if I get white shoes to wear every day, they are going to look pretty terrible within a week. They get dirt on them, and they're just messy.
The gray shoes look a lot better.
But they were 40% off, the white ones, in store, and the gray ones, for some reason, were not on sale. Just the white ones were. So it's like, well, I really would rather get the gray ones, but the white ones are on sale.
So online, they offered an additional incentive to buy more shoes. So to get a larger discount, I actually bought 2 pairs online. But Lauren had to wait, 5 days?
Well,
6
I went
days?
last Sunday, so it was 6, 7.
So she had to wait 6 days. No, because it came on Saturday. Came today.
Right, that would be 7 days. Tomorrow will be 8 days.
Okay. So she had to wait a few days. And the sad thing, of course, is that she had the shoes in her hand, and she's ready to just put them on and stop wearing these worn-out shoes.
And my other shoes were, and it actually gotten to the point where they were hurting my feet. That doesn't happen too often, because usually I get shoes once a year after my birthday.
And I was very apologetic, but I think she understood. I think you understood.
Yeah, I understood. If I had really wanted to say, no, Ben, I think it's better to get shoes today, I would have said, I think it's better to get shoes today. But you were right.
And if you had said, Ben, I really want to get shoes today, I would have said, okay, get them.
I really did want to bring home shoes and put them on. I was tired of my feet hurting.
Yeah.
But I thought, I really do not want to get the white ones. And we're talking 5 to 7 days. You can handle 5 to 7 days.
You got nicer shoes, and you got 2 of them.
Mm-hmm. So I don't have to get any next year.
And we got them at a slightly better price. So.
Yep. So it works out.
That was one package that showed up. The other package was math. Speaking of discounts and things, we homeschool our children, of course, and Abigail and Susanna have finished their math courses, or getting close.
Abigail has finished the first module of the math. Susanna is kind of stuck in the middle. Susanna is a year younger than Abigail, and they're doing the same math program. And I can't tell if Susanna just has a harder time with it,
or her brain just shuts off.
Or she's a year younger, and if she were a year older, it would be easier.
Her brain just shuts off sometimes.
She does this weird thing where all of a sudden she doesn't know anything. She can't remember any of the numbers. She can't count them. And my sister used to do the same thing. And I think it's when she doesn't want to remember, and then she gets a little flustered because I'm telling her, don't tell me you cannot remember 13.
So it gets frustrating when, just the brain shuts off.
Anyway, she's kind of stuck in the middle of that program, and I have to come up with some ideas to kind of jostle her out of where she's stuck.
So
Abigail's next module arrived.
So what arrived today was the new module for the learning, and it's a big step up.
Well, the initial, we're using something called, I think it's called Jones Geniuses. It's an accelerated math program, and the reason we were using it is because some friends of ours were using it and really were impressed. And we watched some videos of what the kids were able to do, and we also, the man who developed it, his name is Miles Jones, and we've seen him in other situations where he was talking about the development of the alphabet as the foundation for how we have our Bible today.
Mm-hmm.
And it tied into the other Patterns of Exodus movie we watched. This man is, I believe he's a Torah keeper.
I think so.
Miles Jones? Yeah, I think he is. And he's tied into several other things that we've watched. And
he was interviewed on Michael Rood's show.
We were impressed by his way of thinking because, first of all, a lot of people dumb down things for kids. And he didn't. He said, I believe children have brains that will do this, this, and this. And he was a school teacher, and he proved that he could teach children to do math at just a phenomenal level at a young age. And we thought, wow.
But, of course, we look at this math, we're adults, and we get our calculators out. But basically, he's teaching children how to do complex math just
without a calculator. Just be able to do complicated problems and have it be easy by the age of maybe 10 to 12.
So he's figured out a way to kind of, configure the brain so that you can do large math very, very quickly. And I don't know if it's just memorization or if it has to do with actual calculation.
Well, from what I was reading through today, and I've just skimmed through what we've gotten, it has to do with training your brain to see numbers in a certain pattern. And we are not usually taught to see numbers as a pattern the same way. We are kind of taught to memorize formulas and then apply them to the numbers. Mm-hmm. But this type of math is geared toward creating a different understanding of the numbers so that they work in your head in a certain way.
Now, one of the things that they're already teaching is with the dots. They call it matrix. Mm-hmm. So if you have a 3, they put 3 dots on the 3. So that you have like a 5 minus 3. So you see the 3 dots. So you say 5, 4, 3, 2. So the answer is 2.
Right. And that's to teach a child to have a pretty good understanding, to have just an instinctive understanding of the value of the number, mm-hmm. rather than just memorizing that 5 minus 3 is 2. These mm-hmm. are just numbers and words that we're saying. It takes a long time to get the concept, but the way this math works is it teaches when you see that number, your brain recognizes a quantity. It doesn't just see a number.
Now, I know when I was learning math, one thing that helped me a lot was Tetris. Playing Tetris.
You saw it as a puzzle.
Because it conceptualized the idea of 4 and the concept of, a 5, concept of a 6 in terms of blocks. And in concepts of like a 6 fitting with a 4 perfectly to make a 10.
Right.
Or the concept of a 7 fitting perfectly with a 3 to make a 10. They just fit nice.
Now this program would call that factors.
Okay, factors. Math factors. I learned my math through math factors. Mm-hmm. Or like a 9, it's just a block with a little notch out of it, and a little notch is a perfect 1. Bloop, 10. That's just how I...
That's how you visualize it.
How I visualize it, how I think it.
You actually learned a form of a visual math, kind of like this.
And a 6, visually in my mind, when I see a 6, it looks to me like a block with a little other block sticking out of it. It's 5 plus a 1. Right. And I see a 4 as a block missing one little hole, so the 6 and the 4 put together perfectly, and you have a 10.
I think that the number blocks program the children watch is similar idea. Those all look kind of like Tetris blocks. You notice that?
Yeah, they do.
So somebody who developed that program that our kids like to watch, called Number Blocks, I think must have learned math a similar way.
Mm-hmm.
So when we got this module today, my sister has already gotten it because her son finished just a few weeks ahead of Abigail. And she got it, and she said, I opened the package, and I said, oh, my. And so she's putting off starting it until now. Because she just decided she was going to have to go through everything and figure out how to teach it. And after getting the package, I know what she means.
So that means you're going to be doing it together.
This particular type of math program, one of the things you do is you put up posters on the wall so the kids see it when they go by. And this is an example of one of the posters. Let's see if you can see it.
Oh, boy.
And I looked at this and I said, Ben, I may need to relearn math in order to teach this.
I think we're both going to have to relearn math.
Because I've never seen a method like this. It's showing an example of how to do a multiplication problem up here. And I have never seen a method like that used before in my life. And it's not like I'm a big math person, so maybe that's not all that surprising that I haven't seen it. But this particular math module comes with 11 units, and you just go through one unit at a time. And basically, I think what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to go ahead and really learn the unit before I have Abigail start it, because my eyes were crossing just looking at the posters. It's like, okay, I get the basic concept here, but there's no way I could teach it.
So 44 times 44. Just supposed to do some calculations in our head, come up with 1936.
I can't do math that quickly in my head.
I saw it on the sheet.
Oh, boy.
It's all backwards, so I can't see it. But
it says 1336. 1936. Yeah.
I was just trying to impress everyone.
I wasn't even going to try. Words are always my thing, not numbers. That's not been as easily. That never came as easily to me.
Well, what's funny is that I think in terms of memorizing numbers with dates.
1936?
So 1936 is a date in my mind.
That's one way you could.
If you say 1984, people, if you're not thinking about the book, you're thinking about the year.
George
1984.
Orwell says, have you people not read my book?
So 1984, it's 1984. Anyway.
Okay, well.
So that is the other thing that came in the mail, and we have a lot of studying to do, a lot of math relearning to do.
I think Ben and I are going to have to relearn it just so that we can support it. And it comes with this whole book. And what's interesting about this book, there was something I wanted to read from the beginning. Let's see if I can find it.
From the disclaimer?
No, I should have.
Any curriculum that has a disclaimer on it, I don't know.
I think most people, when they do homeschooling, they want to get a book and they want to put it in front of their child, have their child do the lesson, and then they correct the lesson and their child has learned the concept, and that's that. One of the things about this particular math program is you as a parent are expected to be a teacher. You are expected to be a tutor. You're expected to be a coach. And I have noticed that absolutely when I start the kids off with their math paper in the morning, I can't just walk away and let them do it. I really have to work with them.
So when it says without coaching, that just means that they did it on their own.
Right. So this disclaimer starts off with, this is a homeschool model of education, not a classroom model. Research has shown that a parent who is dedicated and engaged in taking responsibility for their children's education is the key to success. Jones Genius's Math has no intention of taking the home out of homeschooling. It is assumed that an adult is in charge of teaching the educational process at home. With notable exceptions, most children are not mature and experienced enough to self-administer this math program effectively. A parent must monitor, administer, and tutor the program for it to be successful.
Kind of sounds like the sales training I'm doing.
A parent who does the program alongside their child guarantees their success. It is best if a parent does master all the math. In any case, they must be involved in monitoring, grading, and recording assignments, measuring progress, and adjusting the program accordingly. So, when I look at that, it's like, I've never really had a lot of trepidation at any rate about teaching our kids. I've always been very confident it could be done and that I could do it. But what I forgot is that I may actually have to go back to learning these things in order to teach them.
I think we will do just fine. I really do.
So I think Abigail and I will be doing math assignments together, which will make her happy. She always wants me to be standing over her shoulder when
she'll
she
enjoy it. I think she'll enjoy it. And by the time Susanna's ready, you'll be ready. And by the time Elena's ready, you'll really be ready.
That's true.
Maybe not just her.
What do you mean?
Meaning, I might have to learn this too.
Oh, you might. But you're busy learning other stuff.
I am, but...
One fantastic resource that we really have now that my mom didn't have when she was teaching us is that you have the resources of good teachers on the internet who give advice as to how they taught.
Mm-hmm.
Abigail, for finishing her last math program, got a pair of roller skates. Now, I was pretty good at roller skating when I was little, but as far as I remember, I just picked up the roller skates, put them on, and roller skated. I do not remember how I learned. So I put the roller skates on Abigail, and she just kept falling down, and she was getting very discouraged, and she hurt her tailbone.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you know what? There's people who teach these classes for a living. Let's go on YouTube and see if anybody teaches roller skating. And sure enough,
the beauty of YouTube.
there's this video of this woman who's taught toddlers for years how to roller skate, and she said, you do these 3 things and every kid learns how to roller skate. And so I watched it, and then I watched it with Abigail, and she's like, oh, I can do that. So the next day we go downstairs, she puts her roller skates on, she follows the directions, and sure enough, 3 days later she's actually roller skating. Not great, but she's quite excited because it's a lot easier than learning to ride a bike.
She's quite happy. I actually got a video of her roller skating.
You can definitely tell she's improving.
And the difference between the first time I videotaped her and the second time, just over the course of a day or two, it's night and day.
Yeah.
She went from clunk, clunk, clunk to actually rolling.
Yeah, she's getting the feel of how to roll.
And she did fall over a couple times, but she just got back up and kept going.
I think she's okay with falling over now and then as long as she's seeing some progress.
Right.
It was when she was falling constantly and I couldn't figure out what to tell her to get her balance.
And that's what the YouTube video helps with.
That's what it did.
Or the lady.
So I find I'm teaching all kinds of stuff to our kids right now where I find myself going to look what people who've done a lot of teaching figured out how to teach.
What's funny is what you were describing that she taught reminded me of the classes I took when I was young.
It's probably the same thing people have been teaching to teach roller skating for years.
But I couldn't, until I heard it again, I couldn't remember.
And I never did the classes. So
it's one of those things like when it comes back when you hear it again. It's like, oh yeah, I remember that.
And I got new piano books to start the 2 girls off playing piano since they want to play piano. Now, I play piano decently well. But one thing I've learned from taking violin lessons for, I think I figured out 15 years, is that a good teacher knows all kinds of little things to help a student learn, so it's not quite so frustrating to learn. So I got these books, and it reminded me of taking violin lessons because it said you start here, you teach posture this way, you help a child learn how to find the keys by doing this. And I looked through that, it's like, okay, I can do that. I can teach it that way. It will work. I can see how that will work. So I feel like I'm having to relearn all kinds of stuff.
That's usually how it goes. I wonder if teachers feel that way. But if a teacher is doing the same class over and over and over again, it must be just routine.
They know what to do and what problems to solve, and every once in a while you have a problem kid that has more trouble.
It's different when you're homeschooling because you got to advance along with the child as you go.
Meanwhile, you have to do the laundry, you have to change the diapers, you have to do the dishes.
What, that doesn't just all go away when you're homeschooling?
You have to make sure the meals get done on time, and it'd be nice if the beds got made once in a while. I
life
have so
as
many,
a homeschooling mom.
I have so many different hats right now. I mean, I think I need a whole hat collection hat box just to keep them.
And she cuts my hair.
Oh, yeah. And you got to make sure the boy's hair doesn't go down to here.
She's an occasional... Excuse me.
I cut Daniel's hair this week, and it was like having a session with a bobblehead doll. He's like going like this, like this, like this. And I'm like, how did hairdressers do this?
And it looks good. I like the...
He has a few notches in places that there's not supposed to be notches.
Mostly it looks good.
Mostly it looks good.
So, now we also had a video that your sister sent us.
Yes.
We got lots of good props and content for this particular Ben and Lauren show.
My sister sent me a video by text, and she said, you should show Ben this for the Ben and Lauren show. And then she said, even better, you shouldn't watch it either. You should both watch this.
So the way we're going to do this is we're going to play it on the iPad, and you're not going to be able to see it, but you get to see our reaction. And then we're going to link
I'll
the
narrate
video.
to you what we're seeing.
Okay, she'll narrate.
Ben says I can narrate better than he can. So,
But we'll post the video. We'll share it.
I had a little bit of a preview because I saw what the title was.
Okay. Well, I haven't seen the title. I don't know anything about it.
And the original video is 17 minutes long, so I saw a little. We're seeing a compressed
17
version.
minutes?
Yes, it's like one of those videos you like to watch with the guy who makes vodka out of toilet paper.
Okay, yeah,
It's
something
like
like
one
that.
of those kind of videos.
All right, well.
Originally, but this is cut down because apparently this has become a viral video this week.
Okay, well, let's check it out.
Okay, so let's see if we can get it started. Okay.
I'm going to full screen it.
So it says, need a low-budget engagement ring? This Japanese man collected his fingernail clippings for a year to make a diamond engagement ring. He first blended the nail clippings. Okay, good. He's making a powder out of them. Okay. Then he ground them into a fine powder in a coffee mill. Okay, so he's got fingernail powder. And he mixed it with water in a frying pan. Okay, he's stirring it around. He's got fingernail paste. He compressed the mixture. Looks like he's using a screw to compress it, his fingernail powder paste. And he put it in the oven for 90 minutes, compressed into this. He's making a diamond.
Oh, no way.
Yes, wait. Look.
No way.
So he comes out with a lump of black carbon here. It looks like a shiny charcoal brick.
Okay.
He put the dark clay-like mixture into a mold.
All right.
Okay. And shaped it into a diamond.
Oh, okay.
He put it into a diamond mold.
So it's a black diamond, basically.
That's got to be soft like that. He even made the silver ring by
Oh,
himself.
good for him. That's nice.
And the final step was to insert the
But
diamond
it's not a diamond.
into the ring.
That's not a diamond. That's his fingernail clippings.
Unfortunately, the ring didn't fit his girlfriend. Of course.
What, is his girlfriend a robot?
Well, I think it's sized to his actual girlfriend.
Oh, my. Okay. Well,
It's kind of black. It's not really.
I guess you could say it's a part of him.
It's a low budget engagement ring. How devoted, Ben. You get to save those fingernail clippings for a year.
So
See, you never could do that because you bite your fingernails.
So wait, he turns that powder into a black diamond?
Yes.
But it's not really a diamond.
Well, let's think about this. A diamond is made out of carbon, right?
But this doesn't look like a diamond. It's all black.
Highly compressed carbon. So he took the fingernails and he ground them, so they're going to be calcium, and ground it real fine, turned it into a paste, and baked it under pressure.
Huh.
Like what would happen to a diamond.
Well, that's really, really bizarre. Well, I learned something new today.
You gonna start saving your fingernail clippings and make earrings?
So what can you do with hair? Just start dicing that up really small and put it in a coffee grinder and see what happens. Put that in the microwave. Why not? What comes next? Snot. We'll just make a snot diamond. If you can make a fingernail clipping diamond, you can make a diamond out of anything.
You know, I bet where you heard of
I know, an earwax diamond.
Oh, yuck. I bet he heard of it where I've heard of people taking the ashes from someone who is cremated and turning them into diamonds.
Oh yeah, that's right. They do that.
I have heard of that.
That's really
You compress it.
Bizarre.
Probably the same process. You got to grind it into powder, compress it, and then heat it.
So that means the diamond probably has his DNA all in it. You know?
I'm wondering how it got hard enough. It says it was a clay-like mixture that he put into a mold. Was it just hot while it was?
It seems like it'd be mushy.
Yeah,
Like,
seemed
give it a
it'd be
good
too soft and
Mush
it would,
with your thumb and it would just kind of squish down.
I have no
Now,
idea.
here's
That
the
is
question.
truly unique.
How many people are actually going to try to do this now and make their own fingernail clipping diamonds?
Well, let me just say that if you ever present me with a black diamond ring, I'll get suspicious.
Lauren, guess what bodily fluid this came from? It's my hair. It's my ear. It's earwax. It's... Oh, okay. She's giving me a funny look now.
It's a good thing my hair's braided. It would be like...
Well, thank you, Catherine.
Catherine sent that.
Yeah. You learn something new every day.
I bet you gave your favorite rubber face look, didn't you?
I don't know. So, yes, it does remind me of the toilet paper vodka that we watched. Or the...
It turns out that, yes, you can make vodka out of toilet paper.
It turns out that diamonds are not forever. We learned that you can heat diamonds to a temperature and blow oxygen over it, and they will evaporate.
We did watch a video of a guy who wanted to make sparkling water using the CO2 from evaporating diamonds.
So you can turn your diamonds into CO2.
He spent months and months and months and all this money to collect the CO2 from burning off diamonds. And then he made the mistake of trying to carbonate it using plain tap water. So his face when he tries his diamond sparkling water, he's like, I should have at least used filtered water.
He used tap water. He carbonated tap water with diamond CO2. And he called it the most expensive carbonated water ever.
It was expensive. But it turns out that if you heat diamonds really hot with a torch and blow oxygen over them, the diamonds really will just burn off into gas.
They disappear.
They disappear.
Right before your very eyes.
That's got to make one great murder mystery.
I mean, think about it.
Murder mystery, maybe
That
not a
totally
murder mystery.
destroys
some type
the-
of murder mystery where you take like the biggest diamond on earth, you put it in a test tube, and you evaporate
make it
it,
gone.
and no one will ever be able to find it again.
So in other words, you steal the Hope Diamond and then you evaporate it to CO2 and then, like, I don't have it.
Although, honestly, why you would want to do that if you went through all the trouble to steal the Hope Diamond?
That's one way to make diamonds a lot more scarce. You can start destroying them. So diamonds are not forever.
You
Apparently,
can burn them.
heat and oxygen will make them evaporate.
And on our list of other oddball news.
I don't really care about the CO2. I don't really care about the carbonation. I was shocked to see the diamonds turn red and disappear.
That was quite shocking to watch.
Anyway, so thank you, Catherine. That was quite an experience. I must say I learned something today.
You're sort of speechless. You're just trying to think of something to say.
Fingernails clippings. All right, we'll link the actual video in the below the video,
Yeah, I still
our
have
video.
the video. And let's see, the one thing we had left that we wanted to talk about was, since New Year's was this week by our regular calendar.
Well, we were talking about dates. Talked about 1936, which just happens to be 44 times 44 on the math page, anyway.
And that brings us to, why is this 2020?
So
Why do we count this as 2020 years from what, when we think Messiah was born?
So I learned something rather interesting not too long ago, and it has to do with reading some old Christian literature written back basically in the first couple centuries of Christianity. Very, very old stuff. And they have a whole series of books that's called, they're basically considered apocryphal now, or they're not really considered authoritative. But the conclusion of almost every one of them mentions that when Messiah was born was 5,500 years from creation. And that's recorded as Anno Mundi. Anno Mundi means...
I was wondering what Anno Mundi meant.
it means time from creation. Anno means time, Mundi means creation. So Anno Mundi is AM, and it means time from creation. So certain were these texts, and so certain was the theology of the day, that Messiah was born at 5,500 years from creation. They said, well, God created the world. Just as you have 6 days of work, you've got a seventh day of rest, and a day to the Lord is 1,000 years, so 6,000 years of time, and then a 1,000-year millennial reign after Messiah comes. So essentially, they believe that the end of the world will be 6,000 a.m.
That wasn't the end of the world. That's when they believed Messiah would come back. They
No,
believed.
they believed that was the end of the world. They believed that the resurrection, the world that we're familiar with now, will end.
But then why would they say Messiah was born at 5,500 and they expected him to come back at 6,000?
So they believed very fervently that what we call today 500 AD to be the time of the resurrection of the dead and the coming of Messiah, and the what they call the end of the world and the beginning of the millennial reign for 1,000 years.
But the world doesn't end before the millennial reign. It ends after the millennial reign.
You talk about like the new heavens, the new earth. When you say world, it means civilization.
So
Means that the existing civilization will be gone and the kingdoms of the earth will become the kingdoms of Messiah, and it'll be the millennial reign.
Basically, like I said, they expected Messiah to return at 6,000.
Correct. And they considered this to be the
From
end
creation.
of the world. The events in Revelation would take place at 600 years from creation.
6,000.
6,000. Which may very well be true, but the issue is that in hindsight, 2020 hindsight, we're looking
Ha, 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 ha. Oh, that's terrible.
we're looking back at this, and more than 500 years have passed since the birth of Messiah, as far as we know. That's
And
what
Messiah has not come back.
right, and that's what we would call 500 AD. So it turns out that before 500 AD, they didn't keep track of time based on years from the birth of Messiah. They didn't have what's called AD, which is Anno Domini, time from year of the Lord, or time from the Lord. So we're measuring the time from the birth of the Lord to what time it is now, how many years have passed. So they used to always measure time by whatever king was in power, whatever Caesar was in power, just like we would say, like in the 4th year of the reign of Donald Trump, this happened. The Iranian commander was blown to smithereens in the
3rd year. The beginning of the 4th year.
The beginning of the 4th year of the reign of Donald Trump. So that's how they would measure time, because everybody knew when that king lived and reigned. And
so each king was a marker, and all calendars just basically were each year, and then it was measured by major events.
right. So it happened right around the time of the expectation, right around 500 AD. They were measuring time from the birth of the Messiah as far as best they could, and they recognized that it's the time. Now is the time. And
It's been 500 years.
there's no record in our history books necessarily that Messiah came in 500 AD. And there's certainly nothing in our history books showing a 1,000-year millennial reign.
Well, if there had been a 1,000-year millennial reign, things would have ended a long time ago. We'd be at the final judgment. We wouldn't still be around.
Right.
Because Messiah would have ended his 1,000-year reign in 1500.
Exactly. So
Which was 520 years ago.
So when 500 AD came along and Messiah didn't come, resurrection didn't happen, all these events that they were expecting, they started wondering because they knew that the incarnation of Christ was at 0, and that's what we're measuring. But then they started wondering, well, maybe the incarnation of Christ that we've
been measuring from,
maybe it actually is from when the Holy Spirit came into the flesh of Messiah at his baptism, and he began his ministry.
Okay, so we need 30 more years to find out.
So
if
they
our
had
theory
30
is
more
correct.
years. So when AD 530 comes along, they say, well, second chance. Maybe this is the time we've been waiting for. Again, nothing. So it was around 530 AD that they started measuring the time, because they wanted to see how much time has passed from the incarnation of Christ to what year it is currently.
And they went back to where they thought his birth was.
And they did it intentionally because they didn't want people to think that the end of the world was imminent. Because leading up to that 500, people probably, it must have been a very crazy time. It must have been like 1999 all over again. The computers are going to crash. The world's going to end. That's what I found fascinating, is that there's parallels between 500 AD, I would assume, the mindset of around 500 AD, and the Y2K that we experienced 20 years ago. But then we're doing the same thing too in our minds. We're saying,
We're hanging out for 2030.
Maybe it's 2030.
Or 2033.
Or maybe 2033.
Or 2028.
So we're mirroring this time frame, except instead of being 500 years, it's 2,000 years.
So the reason our calendar became a Gregorian calendar and it became counting, instead of counting from Anno Mundi or counting from the current Caesar, it's now counting from the year of the advent of our Lord.
Correct. So year of the Lord. And that's why you see AD. Now, normally when you write a date, you just say 2020. You don't write 2020 AD, but that would be more accurate. It's the year of the Lord.
So that calendar came into use 530 years or so after Messiah was born.
So the oldest date, the oldest year that would ever be written down would have been about 530. There was really nothing prior to that. And it wasn't really used commonly until around 1100. 1200.
I mean, if you think about it, that's a long time. That's almost twice what our country has even been in existence for. We think of it as so long ago that we don't even remember when that calendar... No history really tends to teach when the calendar began to be counted as it's counted today.
I find it absolutely fascinating that it was taught as doctrine. I mean, it was taught as biblical doctrine.
The Bible says.
The Bible says that, Jesus was born at 5,500 years from creation. Jesus will return at 6,000 years of creation. And that means 500 years from his birth to his first coming to his second coming.
The Hebrews of the day reckoned that the time that Christians counted as the time of the birth of Messiah was actually 4,000 years or so after creation. And Christians accused the Jewish people of hiding the year that Messiah was born by adding extra time to the years of the patriarchs in Genesis so that they could make the time get all messed up.
So the early Christians are accusing the Jews
of hiding
messing the time frame and saying, well, we know Messiah is coming in 500 years.
And doesn't that just sound like something we would do today?
Yeah. But it turns out that they were right. Or at least they have
Looking back now in history...
It would make more sense that they are right. If there's, 6,000 years of history, they're saying basically Messiah came approximately in the middle of that, middle of the whole week.
In 4,000 or so.
Came on the fourth day, essentially, the middle of the week.
And here we are, if that's the case, in the sixth day.
Right. So if you measure that he came the first time or was born around 4,000 years from creation.
Here's the thing that I considered. Why don't you finish your thought? I'm sorry.
If he was born at 4,000 from creation, we add 2,000 years onto that, and that's right where we are today. We're actually would be 2,020 years from that.
It's a very long held idea that Messiah is going to come, and that 7,000th year is going to be that seven set of 1,000 years is going to be when he reigns, because that's the Sabbath. The Lord worked for 6 days creating the earth, and then he rested on the seventh. And so people keep talking about how he's going to come back in the 6,000th year. But something I considered, where someone who keeps the Sabbath would probably note this right away, is that when you keep a Sabbath, it starts... For most people, now there's a whole school of thought of people who are differing from this, but for most people, they begin celebrating the Sabbath as the sun goes down on the sixth day, beginning the seventh day.
Right.
If that's the case, we have to complete the 6,000 years before the Messiah returns. He would come at sundown on the sixth day.
Now, if it's true,
that would mean we have a long way to go yet. We have to get to 3,000.
Well, in the book of Revelation, it says there's a 1,000-year millennial reign, right? Apparently. So if you want to get technical and say a day to the Lord is 1,000 years, perhaps it means daylight. Maybe we need to get through the night of the seventh day before the day of the seventh day, the 1,000 years begins.
The Sabbath begins at sundown on the sixth day.
Well, that's true.
So you have to go through the whole sixth day before you get to the Sabbath.
It's a little tricky to
And if you believe, as some people are now believing, that really Sabbath starts in the morning, then you have to get past year 7,000.
Yep.
So we would be looking at Messiah coming back in the year 3001 or something like that.
No, it would be 2,500. Because you'd have to add another 500. Would that be right?
No.
No.
If we're counting right now from the time of Messiah's birth, and let's say Messiah is born around 4,000, so you have to get to sundown on the 6th day. He's born on the 4th day. You have to get to sundown on the 6th day so that he can reign from the 7th to the 8th day.
Right.
And then the 8th day is judgment.
Right.
So from our counting, from the year 3000 to the year 4000 would be the millennial reign.
Yes. No.
If you follow that tradition, yes. If Messiah is born on the 4th day of the week, you have to get to sundown on the 6th day of the week to get to Sabbath. Or if you count Sabbath from the morning, you have to get past into the
Right.
seventh day.
I think I know what you're saying. So the idea is that if he's born in the 4th day, then you have the 1,000 years to go through that 4th day. Then you have another 1,000 years to get through that 5th day.
Mm-hmm.
That means that right now we're just entering the 6th day.
Exactly.
So that means that it might be...
We could have another 1,000 years to go before Messiah comes back. Just about.
He could be coming back anytime, folks.
But we also have been discussing about the fact that every generation sees the signs of Messiah coming back. Because
For their generation.
Our generations have to keep seeing the signs of Messiah coming back, else how would we be ready?
Right.
You
And
have to stay ready.
every generation figures surely this is the generation that even the disciples believed that this is the generation that the kingdom will be set up.
They were looking for him to come back, we think, in the year 67.
It's quite possible, even before the destruction of Jerusalem.
When the destruction of Jerusalem happened, they were pretty devastated.
They were.
Because they felt that that meant Messiah was not going to come back for quite a while longer
He
than
predicted
they'd hoped.
it. He told them pretty much.
Yes, he did. But so often prophecy is hard to understand.
Hindsight 2020. I have to wonder, here we are entering into 2020, and the very second day of the year, you've got this massive event taking place in Baghdad where the Iranian generals are all blown to smithereens. Are we going to look back at that with hindsight 2020 and wonder if we had only known then what we know now?
We always wonder that about major events. I saw somebody had a meme up that said, 2020 is going to be my year. And then the next picture shows, all of Australia is on fire. And then the third picture shows, well, World War III may be beginning. And he's sitting there with a beer going, that escalated quickly.
My other favorite one is Barbara Walters saying, and this is 2020.
If people thought 2019 was something, I have a feeling about this year. But who knows?
At the beginning of the 4th year of the reign of Donald Trump.
The reign of Donald Trump.
That's how they referred to the emperors, as,
He's not an emperor. I mean, after all, he's been impeached. You
Okay.
can't impeach an emperor.
The presidency of Donald Trump.
Although, here's the question. If they haven't transmitted the articles of impeachment yet, is he really impeached? If the House sits on those articles of impeachment, do we even know they exist?
It seems like he still has, he's still commander-in-chief.
Apparently, he can still tell people to kill off a really bad guy over in Iraq.
So I couldn't resist at least mentioning that in the Ben and Lauren show. The breaking news. Now we'll look back, hindsight 2020. We'll say if we only knew then what we know
eventful.
now, we would look at that a different way.
Maybe so.
Right now we're like, it's about time. A lot of people are not okay with it.
There's a lot of people I'm seeing that I would have expected would be kind of happy that we've finally taken a stand are not too happy. And the only thing you can say is we must wait and see what's going to happen.
And happy is not really the right word. I mean, this is a human being that was killed. This is multiple human beings.
It's not happy. It's just relieved that we were attacked and somebody is going to do something to dissuade more attacks from happening.
It's like every Purim. Are we really happy that Haman is hung on the gallows he built? Are we actually happy about that?
And all of his sons, too. 10 sons.
And 10 sons? I mean, that seems excessive.
Awful. And a lot of people died in the Persian cities.
Right, so...
Speaking of Iran.
But every Purim, we read the story, and that's like the celebration. We won,
The bad guy is defeated.
The bad guy's defeated.
Haman is gone.
But a lot of people in the world today have a hard time seeing good and evil at all. So...
Wow.
Anyway.
And even among people who do see good and evil, there's a lot of dissension as to whether or not this is a good or evil act.
Also, I think people think in terms of
Time will tell.
People think in terms of consequences. They'll say, well, it might have seemed like a good idea at the time, but we don't know what they have planned for us now. The enemy will sneak up on us and attack us, and who knows what terrible things will happen.
Don't know.
Don't know.
But the die is cast. The only thing that remains now is to wait and see what happens.
Right. Hindsight 2020.
And since we have very little to do with affecting any of it, all we can do is sit on the sidelines and eat our popcorn and say, wow, that was interesting. And maybe our popcorn suddenly is rationed.
Lauren. How many denarius is one kernel of popcorn?
Two for a penny. Two
for a
sparrows are
penny?
sold for a penny in the market.
What was the Horseman of the Apocalypse that says for a denarius?
Oh, I forget, but it's some incredible amount of money for a small amount of food. I don't know.
Anyway.
Our job is to live through it, upholding our own name and the name of the Father. Meaning our own name in that we cannot act as people who have no hope and no belief.
Right. So on that very pleasant and wonderful note, post the pre-apocalyptic...
you notice we're pretty relaxed.
Yeah. The pre-apocalyptic Ben and Lauren show. Maybe episode 53 will be the post-apocalyptic Ben and Lauren show.
Or mid-apocalyptic.
Mid-apocalyptic Ben and Lauren show.
We better get off the air. We're getting slapped.
We're getting a little silly. All right. Have a wonderful evening, everybody. We'll see you next week, hopefully. Say goodnight, Lauren.
Good night, Ben. It's a pre-apocalyptic show. I gotta say something different. Good night, Lauren.
Good night, everyone.